a close race between Donald Trump and Vice President Harris, should she be the nominee. A CNN poll of polls average showed Trump has 48% support. Harris holds 47%. Third-party or independent candidates were not included in the polling average. This is the first time a sitting president hasn't sought re-election in more than half a century. Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson dropped out in 1968, but his circumstances were much different. He was in a tight primary, and the DNC was months away. Biden drops out with just 4 weeks to go until the DNC. This week kicks off the release of a new postage stamp tomorrow. The United States Postal Service is honoring longtime Jeopardy host Alex Trebek on what would have been his 84th birthday. The Daytime Emmy Award winner died in 2020 from pancreatic cancer. The new first-class Forever Stamps design is in the form of a Jeopardy-style question. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.
NBC News and KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters 1932.org.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kil Bashir, Andrew Roderman, and Ryan Rose. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our communities. This week, we'll be discussing a lot. We done had quite a bit of stuff that's done happen. I think that beginning with the Biden exiting the re-election, the Republican National Convention, the assassination attempt, his selection for vice president, Kamala Harris, or Vice President Kamala Harris. And so there's a lot to talk about. And of course, that announcement about, and for those who may not know, our President Joe Biden had announced today that he would not be seeking re-election. The assumption is that the Vice President Kamala Harris will be the main individual who will probably come out of the selection from the party, since she is the vice president. That does not necessarily have to be the case, but there is the presumption that it will be the case. So I mean, there's a whole lot going on, and I think with so much to discuss today, I mean, I guess we're going to start with President Joe Biden dropping out of the election. I know Bilal claims he made that prediction.
Well, basically what I said was I believe that they're going to force him. They're going to force him to step down, and I kind of figured that,
Yeah. You think they forced him?
Yeah, I think they forced him. I think they told him he needed to step back after looking at the polls, after the little debate. I mean, I think the debate actually put the seal on it.
Yeah. Is that what you think, Ryan?
I agree. I think that just display and seeing him on that stage and him seeming just so slow and just sort of, he just wasn't sharp enough to just in these next few months, I really think, get the wheels turning on a successful campaign. And I think that, I'm actually surprised it happened. I really didn't think it was going to happen. I'm surprised it actually pulled the plug. I remember seeing a rumor earlier this week that President Obama had some concerns. And I think when I saw that, I was like, okay, this might be a real thing. And to see it actually happen, is very surprising. And I think I'm a little, honestly, it's free. I know we've been sort of critical the last few weeks, but I think I'm more concerned than I was before.
Wow. What about you, Rosa? What you think about your president, Joe Biden, not seeking re-election?
I mean, I feel like it was long overdue. We can definitely see that his mental agility has been suffering from the time that he's been in office, right? And I truly do feel that it's the best interest of the party to have him removed. However, where I stand is that I feel that this should have been done earlier in this whole campaign. Now I almost get this feeling that we almost have to support, right, Kamala Harris, because she's the only one out of anybody else that could possibly and potentially be running, like Governor Newsom and others who have come out and said that they would run for the presidency office. And I feel that we're having to stick with this candidate that is being pushed by the party itself, which in turn is truly problematic for the party itself.
Yeah.
So I think that is it problematic because the President Joe Biden waited so long, or the fact that we're stuck with Kamala Harris? Is she strong enough? Is that a concern?
It's both.
I believe that
it was long overdue.
Yeah.
But I think that also her approval ratings, they range between the 30s and 40s. You know, her approval ratings are extremely low. She's been in office and she hasn't done much. When we talk about, and I understand that, you know, Congress and Senate are not in her favor. However, you know, we were sold this agenda, right? That there would be criminal justice reform, that there would be immigration reform, that there would be a lot of policy for immigrations and minorities. And none of that has come to fruition.
Wow.
Yeah. I honestly believe that we waited too long, entirely too long, because now what it does is it put people in a position as to who we know, who we can believe and who we can trust in. And the only person that they can actually believe and trust in is Kamala, right? Because they know Gavin Newsom is not well known, you know? And so it doesn't, like, you know, if they did it early on, it would have gave, you know, the voters enough time to do research and find out who Gavin Newsom was or whoever it was. But the only person that can actually get up there and they know is Kamala, and I think is Michelle Obama.
I don't know. I mean, I think that of course, a huge issue, I guess, is going to be the running mate. I mean, won't the running mate, or who they choose to be the running mate, won't that have a huge impact? I mean, I know that it may be one of those situations where in out of all the elections, you know, the running mate may be more important than a person at the top of the ticket.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I think there has to be some significant, there had to be some serious strategy in choosing who the running mate is going to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know who that may be. I know that there's going to be some challenges, you know, in the party as to whether they should put somebody else to run against, you know, Donald Trump. But, you know, my prediction, I still have my same prediction. My prediction is they ain't gonna let him win.
Yeah.
Y'all still don't believe me?
And you know, I don't know, man.
Y'all laughing at me?
No, I've been thinking about that. I seriously been thinking about that, especially since the convention and just hearing all the people that came out and support him, all the rhetoric behind it. Man, there's a possibility that he won't. But then, does that mean that who we have before us now will uphold that position? I don't know. This is the weirdest, man. This is the craziest one I've seen yet in the history of this country. Yeah, this is a lot.
It seems like it's been best practice by the party itself to endorse a candidate that has already been endorsed by the sitting president. But I do agree that this election is and should be the exception, especially considering, I think, where we will see a change and a drift in who we vote for will be in who this person, Kamala Harris, right? Vice President Kamala Harris, chooses as her own potential nominee as a vice president. And I think that the other party has been extremely strategic when it comes to choosing a vice president. We're talking about Vince Wright, who is somebody who can be seen as someone who caters to minorities. We're talking about the minority vote again. You know, so what is the Democratic Party going to do to get a hold of that minority vote?
Yeah.
What you think,
and
Ron?
I mean, when I said that I was concerned, like earlier, I think it's more so focused on the fact that I just feel like it brings on another group of problems. Because before it was ageism, now we're gonna have sexism back. We're gonna have racism.
Yeah.
And all of the issues that come with that, and who she chooses for her running mate almost has to offset some of those things. I don't know how exactly you would go about that, but she has to find somebody who, in all of the things where she might fall short to some people, makes up for it in a weird way. And that's going to be really, really tough. And I don't really know who she could choose. I think that's a concern too, because who do you choose as her running mate? Honestly, that we would really believe in and want to jump on board with, be excited about. I don't know if there's anybody that comes to my mind. I know Gavin Newsom was a name, but I don't know if there's anybody that at this point would get people excited about anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, somebody's going to have, you know, definitely going to have to be somebody's going to outshine the headliner.
Correct.
In order for this one to be, you know, to get that kind of, you know, support that we're going to need from the party. But you still didn't, y'all laughed at me when I made my statement. Didn't nobody get involved in that in my theory. Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't know, Rose, I know that you've been listening, you know, been doing a lot of production work. So I know you haven't been at the table, but I know, you know, but I'm sure you've heard my theory that, you know, I don't believe, and this is one of the things now Barack Obama himself had went online or one of the social media platforms and says that our country cannot, this is the most serious thing, that he cannot become the president. He said he's one of the most dangerous threats to our country is Trump.
Yeah.
You know, and again, when I say that, I mean, I think that, you know, it's kind of one of those things where, you know, it's kind of hard to articulate. But I think as far as a president is concerned, I think that we've never, I mean, he is who he is, right? But the problem is, I don't think that do you really seriously think that we could conduct the business of government under his presidency? The distraction would be huge, and I would begin by this, you know, like, for example, like all those pending state cases. Right now, you know that the Supreme Court only hears a certain amount of cases a year, right?
Yeah.
They would have to hear all of his. The courts would be flooded with constitutional challenges as to what you could do with a sitting president. Can you? I mean, you also have to also have to look at it this way. You know, they said that there's going to come a time when, you know, when we begin to start, maybe there always has been a value problem, right? But I think that the fact that let's begin with the 32 felonies.
Yeah.
I mean, am I the only person in the room that doesn't think that that's just so bizarre?
No.
That I mean, in other words, in a healthy, democratic society that leads the world in morality and the moral compass and the do good nation. Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
you
mean-
gotta remember too, he packed the court.
Yeah, he did. He packed the court.
He did. He packed the court.
Yeah.
And he's gonna pack it again with cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with court cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that, for me, I think that, we have to basically pump our brakes
Mhm.
and really start really looking at, the situation. And it's like, enough already.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, sometimes, I don't want to get hit in the face, but sometimes I think that basically sometimes you have to get hit in the face. And I think that's the problem is that we have, and I've said this a lot, often, I think that we've gotten too complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that basically nobody, basically we're living in a society where everybody has been given everything. We're a very spoiled society. Nobody's really gone through a depression.
Yeah.
I think that, it's been a minute since the 80s where we were scared during the Cold War
Yeah.
and the possibilities and probabilities.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that now, if I was, we hear these if I was China, I know China says that they basically, it's a lose-lose, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump
Yeah.
and some of the other, what are considered maybe the, for the lack of a better term, rogue nations.
Yeah.
But I think that, if I was another nation, and I don't know how smart other nations are, I would want him to be the president of the United States if I really did not want to see America succeed.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because now what happens is that it is an indictment on the true morality and value system of America.
Yeah.
Is that our values and morals is not more important. Now, the argument is that we got a value problem anyway, and moral problem anyway,
Yeah.
because we're seeing, they're saying it is the liberal left wing that is the abortion issue,
Yeah.
the gay issue,
Mm.
LGBTQ issue, so they're saying our moral fiber is basically backing away anyway. But then they're basically, making friends with strange bedfellows in order to address a moral problem to begin with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, it reminds me of Training Day, where, what's my man, Denzel
Yeah.
was saying that basically, you don't, you have to, what type of people does it take to deal with the underbelly people? You get the worst of the worst to deal with the worst of the worst.
Correct.
Right. And that's kind of, maybe that's the attitude. I don't know. Talk to me.
I hear you in having the concern over just in general, the aura that is sent with him as a president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet I feel that we are at a very catalytic point as a nation. I do see America as a failing empire.
Yeah.
And I almost feel that this is the camel that is going to break its back. The
Correct.
straw that breaks the camel's back,
Yeah.
And I could sit here and feel and be optimistic. However, I feel that both parties have moved so far in their own arenas. We have the far left and the far right. There's no in between. And when we even think of these potential candidates, right, for president in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that we're seeing. There's no moderate. Is either far left or far right, and there's no unity. Not to mention, Trump is up in 7 out of 8 swing states in the polls after this whole incident. So that in itself just really presents a stark image of what our future might look like come November.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'm just no, I'm serious, man. This is one of these situations where I'm so numb with it in terms of like, as far as like what the outcome is going to be. I mean, like you say, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You know, it's like, what way can you lean and expect a different outcome? And I think one of the things you said about, as far as like other countries looking, I think that's a, and then the thing what you were saying, Rosa, about as far as like, this is probably going to be the straw that breaks the camel back. And I said, I sort of feel that same way because of, just the overall politics of how we seen the presidential candidates of the past, and up until this point now. I don't think we ever seen antics such as we see right now. I don't think we ever seen a election that's going in this totally different direction. And I just think that there's a lot of countries just looking and want to know exactly what's going to happen from this point on. And from my perspective, I just don't think it's going to be good either way.
Well, I mean, this is Joe gave me a note. He says we wanted someone other than the two old guys. Now we have it. Celebrate. So, right. So we
did.
Wow.
We
Hey,
did.
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
I got a question. I'm gonna pose you. I know I don't want to get into conspiracy hour, but I know you, like you said, said something. You don't feel like they're gonna let Trump win. So my question to you is, like, if that were to be the play, what does that look like? Because, like, if they don't let him win, we've already seen an assassination attempt. Like, what could be the thing that stops the Trump train from going?
Control the voting.
Mm-hmm.
Or
as simple as that.
Yeah. Yep. Or put them in handcuffs.
Yeah.
That's what Joe said.
That's the only two ways.
You know what I mean? And he's got all this stuff. I mean, like, that's a lot.
It is.
I mean, because he's got so many. There's only one case that's been adjudicated, and all the rest of these cases are he can't grant himself immunity because they're state cases. I mean, except for maybe the federal cases. So that's, again, it goes back to the whole idea is, do you know? I mean, they can't allow that to happen. I mean, the thing is, this is right now. I mean, I know that people make fun of the Democratic Party. I know that they are talking about, how we're weak and how, we allowed, Biden to get on TV. And I mean, you're right. I mean, they probably knew it wasn't, I don't think it was an accident. I don't think, considering what we're seeing right now, an accident. Was it an accident that nobody knew that Biden had a problem? Was it an accident that they allowed him to do a debate and he was going to look like, the way he looked? Was it an accident that they have allowed him to get on the camera and, basically, even look even worse? Is it to me, I don't think that it is much. It's the accident that we think it is. I really don't believe that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that there's a little bit more strategy to it. It's not like anybody that knew in his, people that have been around President Biden did not recognize the fact that him getting on television and debating would not be a good idea. And ultimately the country and the people in the party would call for him not to run anymore. I don't really believe that was an accident. I think that they probably wanted it because maybe it was there for a reason. Because how else could you call for a sitting president not to run anymore in light of really what was going on?
Yeah.
It's like, let me air out all of this in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And then handle it on the back end. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, could he really just come out and just say, I'm not going to run anymore? What would have looked worse for him to say, due to health reasons, I'm not going to run again? Or would it have been better for him to come out and everybody see that he wasn't looking good?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm asking.
I think it was better for him to come out.
I think that behind doors, there's a lot that has to take place before he is able to even make that decision. And I feel like the ducks weren't in a row. I don't think with everything going on with the party, I definitely do feel that the strategy dealt with figuring out who is going to step up, and are we really going to, go behind Kamala Harris when we have all these other candidates as well?
Right. I mean, that's what I think. I think that there was, I don't believe things are as much of an accident as they may appear to be, especially with something like that. I mean, come on, you didn't know that was going to happen.
I felt it was going to happen.
I mean, and did they not know it was going to happen? I mean, he didn't have to do the debate.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, and it wasn't like nobody knew that. Nobody said, "Oh man," you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, for me, I think that there was probably some degree of strategy that went behind that, or it was like, did somebody just completely just drop the ball? It's one or two. And I tend to kind of lean more towards somebody knew that he had a problem and somebody knew it wasn't going to come out right.
Yeah.
And and everybody, I mean, and it wasn't like it was, I don't believe it was short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think that now is the Republican Party playing, does it seem like they're playing the game in a way that seems, they're a little bit more aggressive. They got more of a strategy. They have a candidate. They probably picked, the dude that they picked as a vice president. It was, I mean, the guy's a Marine and a Harvard Law School graduate. I mean, was he a superhero?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
the
saying?
wife of color.
Yeah, the wife of color.
Yeah. And so, his running mate was strategic. And the thing about it is that basically they have a problem on their hands. The party has a strategy, but they got a loose cannon as a candidate.
Correct.
Now it's just like when he came on television and he began to start speaking at the RNC convention. He began in a way that was pretty nice, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden, he was nice. He was saying nice things. He was coming across very well, and he seemed like he was sticking to the script. Yeah. But at the end, then he started blasting everybody.
Yeah.
So it kind of like eventually it all comes out.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if he was a smart guy, if he was smart, right? In my opinion, the smart move would have been, after that happened, because he talked about God, right? That was cool, right? Because God was looking out for him.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So he gets out there, I would have said, and that made me reassess some things. And now I am going to unite this country.
Yeah.
So he could have taken it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And really just took it and knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this dude really smart enough? I mean, I was a little, I'm like, if this dude is smart enough to knock this thing out of the park and start talking about uniting the country, and now he's done had this idea, he done had this, this come to, if you Christian, come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Then you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, it would have changed everything. Everybody like, oh.
Yeah.
But instead, he started it out, and then all of a sudden, he couldn't help himself.
It was an ego.
Yeah.
And then he ends it up with the same thing of just bashing everybody and saying negative things and whatever. So, I mean, it's like they can't control him. And are they going to be able to control him throughout this whole thing? Or he basically is going to go off script. So but it's just like the dude that's the vice president. He will not allow that guy. See, really, the guy although that guy used to criticize President Trump. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He said some really bad things about Trump.
Yeah.
Wow.
The video came out this week.
Yeah. So now Trump is the type of person, in my opinion, that's going to eventually get to him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's going to be conflict because he can't, he can't really be in a space and, he's not humble enough to be able to do that. He got this, to me, either he's a narcissist or he got a narcissist tendencies. But either way, it's going to blow up eventually.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's the problem. is that if he gets to a point where he gets into office, then that's why we're going to have a crisis, because it's just going to be, Trump in the White House part 2.
With Congress in his favor, and
Huh?
with a red Congress as well, and
Right.
Yes.
It's gonna be a revenge tour.
A revenge tour?
I think so. I think that it's like he won before. Of course, he went through all of, the legalities of everything, impeachment, everything like that. If he wins again, like, you're not gonna be able to really tell him anything, because he came back just as strong, talking just as crazy, and won again.
Yep.
And then gets to be like, y'all tried to kill me. Like, he can basically just talk as much ish as he wants to. And you can't really say anything, because he was able to convince all the supporters that he had before in the last election that he was a part of. And he's kind of, if we're going up the polls, he's swinging people now. Like, it's really hard to, understand. I don't understand it at all, but, he's swinging people still.
Mm-hmm.
He said he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and kill somebody and he still have supporters. Did he say that, right?
Is that what he said?
And gain
you remember
supporters
that?
because of it. And gain supporters because of it.
Wow.
He said that before. Don't y'all guys remember that?
I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, he said he could stand on at Fifth.
Yeah, but what type of president is that to say something like that? I'm along with Ryan when Ryan said, I think this is going to go to his head. He get in that White House for a second term, man. Believe me, you think we seen something the first term, man. You can triple that, because he's definitely gonna cause havoc.
What the reason why the question is, you got to ask, when you really ask this question, this is the interesting part. If you say, okay, people make up things, like when you say, well, why you support Trump, and they'll say certain things like abstract stuff, like God sent them, and all this other stuff, right? But if you really sit down and you think, okay, what is it about Donald Trump that would make people support him so much, blindly, almost like cult like, right? What is the excitement behind this particular individual? And the reality of it is that of course, we got people on the fringes that have co-signed it. It's an anti-government, it's a toss between anti-Barack Obama and anti, other things that have happened within our government, right? But it's really about it's a culture war, and it is an indictment on the fact that what we've been talking about all these years about the problems with this country, like the conspiracy theorists about how racist America is, or how people are more concerned about, they see that they're slipping away as far as the status quo, and that he brings that back. He brings back the culture of America, because they feel like, and we've talked about this on the show on many different occasions, that the culture believes that, we're seeing immigration, we're seeing people, we see people who are supposedly disenfranchised people, gleaning some degree of power, you know what I mean? And that he's the anti of that. Right. So in other words, he's not going to get up there and, and support some of these value issues or value problems that we've seen in the past, because we have a problem in this country right now with values.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We really do.
Yeah.
And so, but he's not really that answer. But we think, but it's because of him that people go so far left. So it's almost like it's going to have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're going to have to create alliances with people that you normally wouldn't create alliances with to defeat him.
Yeah.
And it makes it even more difficult. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's kind of that's it in a nutshell. I mean, that's really what's going on. So we are. I mean, not that we've always been known as the beacon of hope and prospering and the land of opportunity and values and those sort of things. I mean, that's kind of how we sold America.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel like that he's somehow the reflection of that, but he's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's bigger issues, man, that we got to deal with. But this going back to Kamala Harris. I mean, other than my prediction that they cannot allow him to become the president of the United States anymore, right? The issue with her, and when I say her is Vice President Kamala Harris, is that she was pretty much, I mean, as far as him carrying her on the ticket,
Mm-hmm.
she was people believe that she was a non-factor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys agree with that?
I mean, I tell you, just looking at how far we're in, the election is a few months away. Who else but her? She's known for being our vice president, and everyone else, it takes time to build that legitimacy across the nation.
Well, my question when I say non-factor is I'm saying that does she really even bring anything to the table?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So, in other words, was she a factor in Joe Biden becoming a president?
Yeah. So, in other words, yeah. So when he ran, people saying that basically her only shining moment was the debate that she had where she talked about getting on the bus. You remember that when he talked about she was one of those kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But beyond that, is there anything that does she galvanize people in a way that it unifies the party and excite people to go out and vote?
Not quite.
Not quite. No, I think to a small extent. I do.
You think so?
And I think that because I think a lot of people envisioned Michelle Obama when they saw her.
This is the one thing, though. This may be the thing that really helps her. If I was debating with Donald Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden is a little bit too daggum nice.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, if I would have went to the debate, I would have walked in with handcuffs and I would have pulled them out and showed them to him. And I would take that and you know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you that type of dude,
yeah,
then you could really do some damage.
Exactly. Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would say really? Like those 32 felonies that you've been convicted of?
Yeah.
Right? Like the jury that found you guilty?
Yeah.
Right? You have no credibility, Mr. Trump. You've been convicted of fraud. Now, if you had somebody, if she really wants to get it, if she was able to hit him like that, then people are like, ooh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot there, but people aren't using it. We want to be statesman-like.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's going to go in and be hood, then she could do it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much there.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to come down to how she presents herself from this point on.
Yeah, if she was able to come in, if she went on, because I'm telling you, man, I'm serious. I mean, I think she should come in with some handcuffs.
She has to.
And bring them out and dangle them. It's like, how are you going to go out of the country because you're going to be a convicted felon and you're going to be on formal probation and you can't even travel outside the country? Who you going to travel with? Your probation officer? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, if she's able to come out like that, I mean, that would change it. Joe Biden didn't have, that wasn't in him. You know what I mean? He's a statesman, so he can't get down like that. But if
Yeah.
she's
And
able,
Yeah.
what was that, Ryan?
I was just gonna say, like, I agree with that 100%, and I think also he has to lean heavily into like the minority talk. Like, of course, don't try and like pander too much, but you have to lean into the fact that you are black. You have to lean into the fact that you went to an HBCU. You have to lean into the fact that you're a woman, and all of that stuff.
And an AKA.
Right now, and an AKA, because that gives you a legitimacy that like other candidates in the past haven't like had. Like Joe Biden can talk about like what I'm gonna do for black people and stuff all the time, but at the end of the day, he's still an old rich white man.
Right.
Like Kamala being black and coming up in black culture has to be a leaning point. And you have to throw that back in Trump's face about what he said about minorities, how he's dealt with women. You have an ability to talk about that and go at that angle from a way that we really never have seen before. Like, and you have to use what you have in your arsenal to your advantage.
Right.
But she definitely have to do it, and she definitely have to do it quick, fast, in a hurry because we're so close. And I think that she has to hit it real hard. If there's anything that's going to come out of this and it's going to weigh in her favor, she definitely, like I say, she have to do something unconventional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's gonna have to go at him.
Yeah.
I mean, she could. I mean, if you had somebody that's able to go up there and like go at them, man. I mean, like you really give it to them because I mean they have all of this that they can deal with.
Yeah.
I would say the only thing that like, what are you gonna do about the courts? Because basically you're gonna do nothing but occupy the courts with your cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, can you explain to me why about those things? I mean, if you hit them like that, then because they're not. That's how they play their game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's because it's not no more about politics. It's about them thinking that the Democratic Party is weak, and that basically he thinks he's really a bully that can't fight.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the reality of it is that it's just like the bully gets in and gets knocked out. And that's almost the way that you have to. That's what was happening with, Joe Biden, because it's not enough to be a presidential anymore. Yeah. The gloves are off. You can say literally anything as a president of the United States. You can be a convicted felon. You can make fun of veterans. You can do all that, and nobody really cares. You know what I mean? And not to mention some of the other things that he said, like basically the things that he's done and said about women. So the thing is that you can take someone who is a family man who has family values, but you could take him who basically, he's a swinger. Yeah. And when I say swinger, like a dude that he date girls. You know what I mean? He has that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The complete opposite. But then he's so slick. He goes out there and takes a Bible and holds it up, and everybody loses their mind. You remember that? You remember that, Rosa and Ryan?
Yes, I do recall that.
I do.
Wow.
I do recall that.
Yeah, so that's what
so phony too.
It was so phony.
Wow.
So you got to get somebody that in other words, you're not dealing with, statesmanship and whatever. It's like that. Basically, we've already taken off the gloves. We already don't care whether the person has real values or not, even if it means we've lost sight of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that he covered that instead of speaking on it so much. I think he covered that by bringing in like the pastor that he brought in to speak at the RNC, and as well as all of the other celebrities that he brought in. And I think he specifically brought in the pastor to kind of cover that minority space right there, as well as that religious space. So instead of him speaking on it, he just brings someone on that actually supports him.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. But I think, I wanted to go back to the question that Ryan had asked. And I think the big question, the big concern for me is, as Ryan asked the question, as what does it look like? What does it look like after the fact? And I think we looking at right now what's going, we know it has to go either way, right? But we look at, especially if it does not go in his favor, considering the fact that what happened in the past with the January 6th, and I think that his followers are more engaged now than they've ever been before. How does that look if he runs and he loses, or if he gets in office? How does it look? And I think that's the question right now that I really want to get answered as to moving forward.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Just hearing from what his policy goals are, right? What does it look like in terms of immigration?
Yeah.
Increase funding for Custom and Border Protection and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Stricter immigration laws to reduce illegal immigration. Merit-based immigration systems to prioritize skilled immigrants. In terms of the economy and trade, we have further tax cuts for individuals and businesses. Trade policies, continued focus on renegotiating trade deals for favor of American interests per se, repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, obviously increasing more of our military funding, more conservative judge appointments, and a more of a law enforcement agency aimed at reducing crimes per se.
Yeah.
And of course, Second Right Amendment, protection of those gun rights.
Wow.
Yeah. That's gonna be interesting situation. But are we really even focused on the issues? Are most Americans really concerned about the issues? I mean, when we talk about the general voting community, what are the issues that we think that are really driving people away from Trump? I mean, away from the Democratic Party into the Republican Party. What are the real issues that we're really looking at? And are they realistic issues that we're really looking at? I mean, are these things that are really, for example, the huge issue is obviously, the cultural issues. But what are some of our Social Security? Is that an issue?
That's definitely
Yes.
an issue.
Healthcare, is that an issue?
Yes.
Yes, I think also the aspect of having the token minority. I feel like a lot of people are awakened to the fact that the Democratic Party has promised a lot for minorities, including in this presidency, right? When it came to criminal justice reform, immigration reform, and none of that was done. So there's a lot of disillusionment from minorities with that, especially because we had, Kamala Harris come into play, and people felt like they could relate, but the policies weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, again, is it going to be any different between one? Or what is it that I mean, and let's just say plays devil's advocate. What is it that Trump brought to the table during his administration that the Democratic Party will not or have not brought to the table? What are those specific issues?
I think people really do see him as the beacon of transparency, even though he's not transparent himself. But he almost outed the political world to the nation, letting them know, hey, this is what this is what happens underneath the table per se.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people are capitalizing on that, but aren't really thinking, well, is he really being truthful? They're not thinking about that. They're taking it verbatim.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, and I've heard this, several times, that we can appreciate someone that's going to come out and tell us how they're going to be, opposed to someone who's sneaky doing it without saying what they're going to do. And I think it goes back to what you said. I think you said years ago where you talked about how it's like a relationship, you know, after a certain period of time, you know, when you in this relationship and the person doesn't give and give, then at some point they divorce, they get away from each other. And it goes back to what Rosa said when she said all of these things that was promised. But then what happened was once you did these 4 years, all of the stuff that you promised didn't come to fruition. You know, you fell back on it. So it's that relationship type thing where I think a lot of people was falling away from a Democratic Party based on the fact that the promises that was made, they didn't follow through with them. So and then it goes back to what I was saying, you know, earlier on a couple of shows ago, that a lot of people are very neutral in this. A lot of people are to the point where they say, you know what, I'm not going to vote either way. And I think that there's a large segment of individuals that is like that. I'm not going to vote at all.
Yeah. I don't know. What you think, Ryan?
I mean, I just don't think there's any. I mean, it's tough to say right now because it got announced today, right? We're going to see how all this plays out this week. You know, we've got the convention coming up, the Democrats soon. We'll see how they rally everything together.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see a lot of excitement in general. Like, and I really don't know what they can do to sort of just rally the supporters, like flip some voters. I really don't know. I am predicting, you know, kind of like Bilal said, I'm predicting a lot of people don't vote like this time around. I really do. Unless something drastic happens, unless Kamala comes out talking the way you suggested she talks, I don't really have a lot of confidence in them in the next couple of months, but I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I mean, I just think that we're really, you know, it's hard to figure out. I mean, I think that people are, you know, it's unfortunate that we have only really two choices in this country. You know, there's not ever really been any, you know, with the exception of maybe Ross Perot, and is probably the one that gave, as far as a third party, probably the most viable. And then your boy, what's your boy's name?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. Now we're feeling the burn.
Yeah, why not him? Yeah,
you know, she could put him on the ticket as a vice
bring
president.
More old folks back in, bring the old guys back in.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, I don't think the party would allow it if he came in. But I mean, but that's kind of like, you know. So if you don't have any third parties that are going to be really viable or give them a run for the money, then, you know, we're still stuck with two individuals. And those are really, you know, and then a lot of people, you know, it's become an issue where when you make a decision on who you're going to vote for, a lot of times there are really none issues. And sometimes people don't know why they're voting and they're misinformed, even sometimes even by the parties, about why someone is going to be in your best interest. And then when you hear, like, if you ask the average person, why are you voting for, you know, Donald Trump, then they're probably going to give you an answer because they've convinced you that he has power to change things that he doesn't have power to change, or that's not going to be really any different. Yeah. And then when I asked the question, what really happened during his 4 years that was really different from the last 4 years, what do we say? What is the real answer to that? I mean, you know, we get more of the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't really, you know, really change. I mean, as far as government, I mean, it's really the local government probably that has as much, if not more, of an impact on our day-to-day lives. But because, you know, the president is seen as really like controlling the world or controlling. And so if we go back and we think about really what the importance of a president, then who is the statesman? You know what I mean? So, but going back to, does it really matter? Because they ain't gonna let them win. Huh? They're not going to let them
Yeah.
win. I'm
I
telling
hope
you.
you're right.
I'm telling you. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is people got to understand something. You know, I mean, you cannot. I mean, I'm just so disappointed, man, in our nation. I really am.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed. I mean, some of the things that people like, I never thought any of that would. I would think this is what I would think. I would think that if a bunch of people went up to the Capitol and bomb rushed the Capitol and a couple people get killed, I would think that it would unite our country against anybody that would do something like that.
You would think, yeah.
I would think that if a president got on television and criticized war heroes, I would think that it would unite the country against that person. But it basically is just he doesn't stand for a united nation. He stands for a divided nation.
Right.
And then and the only thing that's going to happen, no matter what you think, no matter these little issues, if he gets in the office, all you're going to see is more division, and a division that's ultimately going to destroy the country. Because the last thing that we need, no matter who the president is we're going to have unity.
Yeah.
If we don't have unity, man, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe that.
Wow.
But anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in for Justice Watch. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. And until that time, stay blessed.
News, weather, and talk from KCAA, broadcasting to the Moreno Valley, Corona, and Riverside.